Can we start, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. It's working
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very good afternoon to one and all from me here. On behalf of the management, principal, and Department of English, and on my own behalf, I welcome you all to this online webinar on culture theory. First of all, I would like to welcome our resource person, Mr. Sishir Kumar, Department of Major Arts, Xavier's College, Kathmandu, Nepal. Though our resource person is a citizen of Nepal, he did his master's degree in St. Joseph's College, Tiruchirappalli, Tamil Nadu. And he did his MPhil in Pokhara University. He has got more than 10 years of teaching experience. He has published many research articles and has supervised many research writings. I welcome you, sir. And he has participated in various international webinars as resource person. I also welcome our senior person, Professor Navanithan sir, to this online webinar. I also welcome our teacher friends and all the research scholars from various institutions of various places, and my dear students, to this webinar session on culture theory. Once again, I extend a very hearty welcome to you all. Thank you. And now the session is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Before I get started, I just would like to ask, how is my audibility? Is it okay? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, you are audible.
All right. So let me get it started. A warm greetings, good afternoon, and namaskar to all of you. I would like to offer my gratitude to Ms. S. Sylvie, Organizing Secretary and Head of the Department, Dr. J. Parshuraman, Patron, Mr. N. Subramaniam, Chief Patron. And on this occasion, this academic engagement, I also would like to appreciate Professor N. Navanithan, Mr. K. Muthulakshmi, Assistant Professor, Mr. S. Sankari, Assistant Professor, Mr. R. Aravind, who after a long time of conversation with me, and finally the day has come that we could meet with each other. And Ms. Thomas Adekal, Assistant Professor, students, and the whole PG and Research Department of English of JJ College of Arts and Science. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me in this webinar and providing me this opportunity, and for this invitation as well. I also should not forget to mention some of my colleagues from my college days. From there too, some of my friends have joined. I must mention them. If I'm not wrong, this is Renu Joy has joined,
Hi,
Hamraj
Shishir.
has joined, and Father Yesudas Chungat has joined. Thank you so much, every one of you. Yeah, I could see Father. Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for joining and even motivating me to speak on certain topics that is being provided to me. Um, after this salutation, I just would like to start talking about the today's topic, that is cultural theory that we are going to talk. Little bit of sharing about me. When I got the topic cultural theory, it gave me, in fact, a long time to really find out whether I should be talking on cultural theory, or I should be talking on cultural study, or I should also be talking about the present literary theories that are much associated with cultural theory. There was a confusion. So what I did was I tried my best to simplify it. And I felt like giving a general idea about the cultural aspects and cultural nuances of human life and experiences, which are very much associated with uh, literature, the production of human imagination. I thought that would be better. So I have designed my slides, my talk for today accordingly. So I'll be talking about what is culture, what does it do, and what should it do, and I will be talking about theory, what is theory, and then I'll be talking about cultural theory and cultural studies. And after that, I will also be talking about postmodernism, the present idea that we all, the literary scholars, are all around the world, that we try to seek into and we try to know more about it, how this postmodern phenomena has caused um, or played a role of catalyst, which has been motivating us to look things in a different way or to think things in a different way. So I'll be talking about it. So let me begin with my presentation. Give me a moment, just a minute. Yeah. Is my screen visible to you all?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. My first thing that I will be talking about, as I told you, three questions. My first question is, what is culture? My second question is, what does it do? And my third question is, what should it do? As we all know, we are part of some culture. We have been associated, we have been identified, we have been acknowledged by certain identity. And that identity of human beings is related to certain attributions and experiences which are available in society, available in nature, available in time, available in history. These things identify us. These things help us get recognized. So culture is something that could be my food, could be my festival, could be my language, could be my geography, could be my time, could be anything. But basically, culture is in fact an amalgamation. It's a pattern, it's a design under which we are an element, under which we are a part. In my slide, you will see what culture is. So culture
Excuse me, sir.
characteristics.
The slides are not visible, sir.
Is it not visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's not visible.
Oh. Okay. Is it visible now, ma'am?
No, sir.
Is it visible to you now?
No, no. No, no, sir. It's not visible.
Oh. Do you see my cursor, ma'am? Do you see my cursor of this mouse?
No,
Mobile?
no, sir. No, no. Is it visible to others? Any one of you can say.
Father, is it visible to
Others?
you?
Yes, it's visible.
You're putting your microphone off and you are speaking, Father.
It was visible to me. It was
All
visible.
right.
Okay. Thank you.
It is visible to me also. Oh, thank you.
All right. Let's
Okay.
So I think I shall continue, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, just for the last final confirmation, is it visible? Is it okay now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I'll just go on. So I'm talking about culture. How culture is part of this human life and how this culture is part of nature, how culture is part of time, how culture is part of society as a whole. So I have written this information that I gathered from a research paper which has a title Conflict Transformation Across Cultures. It says, culture is a characteristics and knowledge of a particular group of people, encompassing language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music, arts, and there could be more than that, or there could be something else, which even we do not know. The word culture derives from a French term, which in turn derives from the Latin colere, which means to tend to earth and grow or cultivation and nurture. Is it okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, culture is anything which has an association with human beings. It could be my language. It could be my cuisine, the food that I eat. It could be the way my grandmother makes some breakfast at home. Or it could be the special skills my father uses in the farm. That is my culture. That is very much associated with me. That defines me. That identifies me. And that is my identity. We know in the present world how important, at least in South Asian locale, we know how important identity is. Or at least getting identified by certain things as such. Religion, say, for that example. My another briefing about culture is shared patterns of behaviors and interactions, cognitive constructs, and understanding that are learned by socialization. Thus, it can be seen as the growth of a group identity fostered by social patterns unique to the group. I got this from a reference from the University of Minnesota. They have a Center for Advanced Research on Language Acquisition. Now, this is a shared pattern, our behaviors, our interaction. My culture is the way I think. My culture is how my cognitive pattern has been constructed, how my learning develops in my age group, what is happening to me, or how my education system in my country works is part of my culture. That identifies me. That gives me a space where I can introduce myself. That is culture. Culture is the shared knowledge and schemes created by a set of people for perceiving, interpreting, expressing, and responding to the social realities around them. It's the shared knowledge and schemes created by a set of people perceiving, interpreting, expressing, and responding to the social realities around them. What happens around us, how we perceive it, how we interpret it, how we express it, and how we respond to it, all have a certain relationship with the culture that we live in, because that is the only thing that identifies us. We know we are rich, we say we are rich in our culture, but when we have to define what culture is, and we are sort of certain sentences, certain words. But what argument that I'm trying to establish here is that one thing that identifies me, what I might be proud of, I might not be proud of, but that relates to me, that belongs to me. I feel comfortable letting others know that I have certain proximity about that particular thing, particular dance, particular song, particular language, particular food. That's my culture. And how I interpret, how I perceive, how I express, how I respond to that, these all are social realities. And they, in fact, become my culture. And this is not one thing that I can call culture. There's so many things that I can call culture. As I told you, this reference is from a research paper, and this is where I brought it from. So the bottom line, what culture is, that when we have to say is a way of life that I get identified with. It's my tradition, it's my history, it's my knowledge, it's my behavior. It's the pattern that I see, it's the design that I see in my day-to-day life, or it's the geography that defines me. I'm speaking from Nepal, and this is the place which identifies me. That could be my identity, and that's my culture, the time that I live in, and the interpretation about it. This all belong to my way of life, my identity, and my tradition. They relate to each other. So the bottom line is, what identifies me, I feel comfortable about it, or I do not feel comfortable about it. If it identifies me, and when I have to let others know where I belong, that sense of belongingness, it's culture. We know, we are very much well aware about Bharatanatyam, and this is quite well famous in Indian subcontinent. And this could be our culture, could be a dance form that we dance with, could be certain expressions that no other dance form in the European society can ever have, that is entirely different from them. So there is a clue, there is a kind of recognition that this particular thing belongs to a certain group of people. Could be a festival, a street festival in some Latin American countries, could be some African countries, maybe in our place, the South Asian countries, or it could be somewhere quite far. Everything that relates to human beings and their interaction can be called culture. And in this whole planet, we share different cultures wherever we live in different parts of the world. And these differences, in fact, make up or accumulate certain information which are related to that particular group of people. And if we travel 1,000 kilometers, or if we travel a different country, or even we don't need to travel a different country a certain kilometers, within a country, within a state, within districts, within municipalities, there are different cultures. Every household has a different system. I could give you a couple of examples from Nepal, where certain community have a different kind of food they eat in their day-to-day life. But their food is determined by where they live. That all these people, they belong to the same caste, same ethnic group, but the food that they eat, the name is same, but how they prepare it depends upon the geography where they are located. If they're living in the Himalayan region, the way they prepare that food is different. If they're living in the hilly region, the way they prepare that food is different. If they're living in the Tarai region, the way they prepare their food is different. So things are different. Things which identify human beings are different. But what makes us identified is our culture. I believe I made an argument. I developed an argument saying culture is not one thing that identifies us. It could be a lot of things. It could be the multiplicity of our experiences. It could be the plurality of our experiences that are available around us. At times could be tangible, at times need not be even tangible, could be something we have not seen it, but that relates to us. Now, if I say so, we all are part of some culture. Culture, defined in its broadest sense, is the totality of society's distinctive ideas, beliefs, values, and knowledge. It exhibits the ways humans interpret their environments. So this is the bottom line that I was talking about. So this is culture, what identifies me, how I'm known to people, these tools, these means, these techniques, these instruments, let's say, some vocal instruments, or let's say some ways how I introduce myself, they all can be defined as culture. When I'm talking about culture, then I have to relate it to theory as well. What culture and theory, how can they come together? How this very culture has been theorized, or how this culture has been brought in the academia or the literary field. is also important. So my second part of presentation would be about understanding what theory is. Many of us have been well aware about what theory is. It's a theory. This theory that we are talking about, at the end of our discussion, we are definitely talking about literary theory. We have been well known about Marxist theory. We have been well known about feminist theory. We have been well known about psychoanalytic criticism. We have been well known about historicism, formalism, and different other theories as well. But what is this theory? Is it a supposition or is it a system of ideas? So let's look at what this is. Theory is a supposition or a system of ideas intended to explain something, especially one based on general principles, independent of the thing to be explained. Theory is a lens which I use to see things. A single text can be interpreted with the help of Marxist criticism, where I try to see social struggle, where I try to see the division of society, where there is a bourgeois class and there is a proletariat class, where there is a group of rich people and there is a group of poor people, where there is haves and have-nots. And how this social struggle or the class struggle helps continuing human history or human development. Or the same text can be even analyzed with the help of feminist theories. Same text can also be understood with the help of psychoanalytic criticism. So theory is a lens. So theory is an approach. It is a system of ideas which intends to explain something. When we have to theorize something, this is a perspective that we are generating to looking at the text, looking into the text, and trying to find out how specifically with one particular theory we can look this particular text and how we can interpret it. This is very important to understand. Theory gives us a lot of liberty and freedom to interpret the text. At the same time, theory limits us. Theory has a limitation. When I'm trying to talk about, when I'm looking at the text and then using Marxist theory, I will not be even trying to go closer to other theories. Definitely there will be cross-references and analysis that's there, but I will try to limit myself to a particular theory that I try to understand. So theory is a lens. Theory is a perspective. How do we use our spectacles? If I use my spectacles black, I'll see the world black. If I use my spectacles green, I'll see the world green. Theory is the spectacle, is the lens, which I use to see the text. A theory is a group of linked ideas intended to explain something. A theory provides a framework for explaining observations. The explanations are based on assumptions. They can be tested to provide support for a challenge. Okay. I mean, this theory basically of a laboratory, of a chemistry lab, you can talk about what theory they're applying and what experiment is being done. We are talking about humanities, where humanities seeks qualitative interpretations and observations, where many of the assumptions before the theory gets launched and it is understood, an assumption is being created, an assumption is being framed, or the hypothesis is being framed. And on the basis of that hypothesis, I try to develop my theory. And if it is science, I bring it to the laboratory. If it is humanities, or especially if it is literature, I bring it in my text and I offer it to my readers. And they are the people who will test it and they will respond to it. So literary theory could be scientific theory, political theory, legal theory, cultural theory, psychological theory, and social theory, all the isms that we know so far. So this is about theory. What theory means is the system of ideas through which we look at things. This is the lens, this is the perspective which is designed to us. We did not invent it, but we have that liberty to use it the way we want it. But at the same time, I also gave you another counter argument, that is, theory is free, that the readers can use, or the critic can use to interpret the text, but at the same time, it limits the interpretation. It limits the criticism. So I talked about culture. I talked about theory, which is an approach. I'll be talking about what cultural theory is now. So cultural theory or cultural theory strengthens the expectations that markets work not because they are comprised of autonomous individuals who are free of social sanctions, but because they are powered by social beings and their distinctive ideas, beliefs, values, and knowledge. It can contribute to understanding and promoting development where group relationships predominate and individualism is tempered. Now, basically, what cultural theory is, this tries to power social beings and their distinctive ideas and beliefs, values, and knowledge. It can contribute to understanding and promoting development where group relationships predominate and individualism is tempered. Now, theoretically, if we try to look at the behavior, the human behavior, or human ideas, or human beliefs, or human values, how they have certain impact if we start doing some microscopic understanding, microscopic research about how human beings are associated or how they have been influenced, or what is the relationship of them with ideas, beliefs, values, and knowledge of certain culture. We are trying to test, we are trying to examine certain culture, certain values, certain knowledge, and that study, that particular part of research, is cultural study. What are we trying to do? We're trying to understand a culture. We're trying to understand an individual. We're trying to understand a society. We're trying to understand a region. We're trying to understand a whole locality. We're trying to understand a community of people. So culture is something that gives multiplicity in itself. It is very plural. It is very much pluralistic in terms of its different aspects, which can be shot into and which can be used to interpret different things in society. This is how cultural studies can also be understood. Cultural studies designates a cross-disciplinary enterprise, as I was talking about it. It has a relationship with sociology, it has a relationship with psychology, it has a relationship with science, it has a relationship with humanities, it has a relationship with politics, it has a relationship with economics and everything else. So cultural studies designates a cross-disciplinary enterprise for analyzing the conditions that affect the production, reception, cultural significance of all types of institutions, practices, and products. Among these, literature is accounted as merely one of many forms of cultural signifying practices. Literature is also part of cultural studies. But in a broader sense, cultural studies is not only the subject where literature is associated. All the cross-disciplinary or all multidisciplinary enterprises are much related. And for them, cultural study is equally important. Society is a text for them. They study society. Or for us, even if we study society, people who are associated with literature are very keen to be microscopic in their research. They are very much into characters. They're very much into setting. They're very much into theme. They're very much into plot. So we are more specific. So even though we are not mathematical, it very much seems to understand that our microscopic research, understanding about a society and its cultural values designates the readers and writers of literature in a different position. equal to other cross disciplines. So I brought this idea from a very famous book that every one of us are well acquainted with, and I also want to recommend this book for the students who are participating in this program. Quite a good book if you are students of literature. It gives you a lot of reference. The other idea, the chief concern is to specify the functioning of the social, economic, political forces and power structures that produce all forms of cultural phenomena and endow them with their social meanings, their truth, the modes of discourse in which they are discussed, and their relative value and status. I do not want to go more on it, but basically the modern cultural values that we in fact try to incorporate in our day-to-day life, because time had changed. We have been part of this global society, and then what I exist today might have been manufactured in 1,000 miles away. So cultural dominance, cultural attack, or cultural similarities, dissimilarities, and cross-cultural issues are one of the paramount issues today. So the writer is not able to associate one culture, one idea, one context with one particular writing, or one particular character. It is very much associated with so many other disciplines, and it has been very much modernized. And one person, might have a relationship. I just want to go talking about important writers. Hello everyone, is it okay? Am I audible to you? Is it okay? Am I audible? Can somebody just say hello?
Yes, yes, it's audible now.
Now, I will not be talking much about it, though it is important. I just would like to talk about two very important writers who have contributed researching, studying, and writing about culture and human society. These two people are, one is Raymond Williams. Many of us have heard about it. Raymond Williams' book, Culture and Society, and keywords of vocabulary of culture and society have immensely talked about what culture is, how literature produced in that particular time is influenced and has associations with culture, how society or literature or its production cannot be away from when it belonged or when it published or who wrote it. And Raymond Williams tries to give it a very specific word designed cultural materialism. So cultural materialism is basically culture is the context upon which a certain material is produced. So literature is a material. The beginning, the background, the backdrop is culture. The production of that culture is, the material of that culture is the literature that we get in our hand as a novel, as a book, as anything that we might call. So culture is a productive process. This is the idea of Raymond Williams. So culture is not only identifies me. Culture not only relates to its theory. Culture is also about production. Culture is also about creativity. It is not about theory alone. So theory or the criticism or the creative, we find the students of literature in opposition to each other. One writes, the other criticizes. The one who criticizes is a critic, one who writes is a writer. We have always found these people or the two different counters in different forms. But when we talk about culture, culture has a space where it lets literature gets produced. So culture is a productive process. And then Raymond Williams defines cultural materialism as a process in which a certain time, certain history has certain influence to the literature produced during that time. The other person is Stephen Greenblatt. Stephen Greenblatt has written these two wonderful books, Towards the Poetics of Culture in 1990 and Renaissance Self-Fashioning in 1980. And then Stephen Greenblatt is also a person who has contributed writing a lot about Shakespeare, how Shakespeare could be the product of his time, how Shakespeare was shaped to write certain writings, how Shakespeare was a person who was a businessman, in fact, who had to sell books, who had to write to survive. Or he also did a business of writing, how he was told by the then supreme people of the then society, kings and queens, how he was told to write certain aspects. So Stephen Greenblatt is a person who has immensely written about Shakespeare. So in these two books, Stephen Greenblatt tries to introduce something called cultural ethics, that no writer is free from his or her own subjectivity. I am a writer. I can say I want to be objective as much as I can. But even if I study mathematics, even if I become the students of science, my context, my upbringing, my family, my culture will never ever let me go away from what I do in my day-to-day life. Books, films, newspapers, our teachers, we ourselves, our family members do have certain influences, for no doubt. But this something called human subjectivity is inherent. We cannot be dismissed from it, or we cannot dismiss it. So cultural poetics is something that culture shapes how we think. Culture shapes what we do. Culture shapes how we eat. So no writer, I'm taking this reference in writing as well. So no writer is free from his or her subjectivity. It is all about what we produce and how we cannot be away from how we were influenced by certain things. And we can look this example in our day-to-day life as well. There are other people as well, whom I cannot talk at the moment. There are Stuart Hall, Louis Althusser, and Antonio Gramsci, and they are well read about this culture and literature and society and all these aspects. So I talked about culture, I talked about theory, now I talked about cultural study, and I try to relate them, how they are associated with each other. Coming to this time, things have changed. I no longer have to experience, or I have no right to experience how my school days were. Things have completely changed. Even the challenges to human beings over time has made human beings more competent, more knowledgeable, more open, and more accessible. Corona pandemic, this COVID-19 is an example how this particular experience of mankind in one particular time in the history taught every one of us to get associated with each other, to know each other, to talk to each other, to be more open, to be more frequent, though there are certain challenges. Big pandemic, it was not even epidemic, it was a pandemic. And then it has also given many opportunities for the inventions, for people to get modernized and everything. So the world that we live today is filled with multiplicity. It is filled with plurality. There is no one thought. There is no one thing. There is no such one language that I am speaking. My mother tongue is different. I am speaking in a different language. When I studied in southern part of India, Tamil Nadu, I had different experiences. I could speak a little bit. I could understand a little bit about Tamil. So if I go to China for certain days, certain years, or if I go to some European countries and if I live there, my language will be changed. So how one person has multiple identity, how one person has multiple introductions, multiple understandings and experience at the same time, has made the writers to think their very limited narratives cannot cover all the subjects of the world. if the writers try to be very specific, very scientific, and very objective in their writing, or in their grand narratives or meta narratives, they cannot bring this multiplicity in their writing. So writers tried finding a way out, which we named postmodernism. Writers try to find out how best things can be presented, how best the present world or the context can be captured by literature. So it is named postmodernism. It is after modernism. Basically, it is believed the postmodern writings likely began after World War II, but there were a couple of examples of writing, the writings which were much related to mechanisms, the infantry, army, life, death, industrialization, and everything slightly even before World War II. But basically, in the timeline after World War II, it is understood that postmodernism started. Now, when we talk about postmodernism, many of us are very much certain at times, very much confused at times what it actually means. It has three different forms. One, modern, the other modernity, and the other one is modernism. So modern is an adjective. What does it mean to be a modern person? It relates to the present or the recent times as opposed to the remote past. So what was happening at the moment is not happening at the moment. What was happening just some time before is not happening at the moment. There is a change, there is a gap. And remember, modernity does not mean good. Modern does not mean better than before. Modern means a difference, opposite. It is taking a new direction. It is trying to find a new space, and that's modern. When we talk about modernity, is a noun again, the quality or condition of being modern, a modern way of thinking, modern way of working, something as such. So what is modernism? So when we find this ism, it is very much associated with theoretical stance or philosophical ideas. So modernism is both a philosophical movement and an art movement that arose from broad transformations in Western society during the late 19th and early 20th century. So in this modernism, individuals became important. If it's a village, we get to know what is being cooked in another house. If somebody is cooking non-veg in that house, I smell it and I get to know something is there. I talk to that person. There is a sense of attachment in the village. How the world has changed. If you look at the cities, even people live in the same houses, they do not have time to talk to each other. Time has completely changed. It has become a cliche, giving a lot of examples. Everyone has mobile in their hand. Even if they are eating. Is it somebody? I think we should just stop that. Would be good. Yeah. Okay. So things have changed. Modern man has a lot of different challenges, a lot of distractions, a lot of opportunities, and one subject matter cannot limit or cannot complete the experience of a modern man. So you need to create the literature which can better represent that modern man, how he or she is undergoing that particular situation, how he or she is in fact having a particular experience, how live-in relationship is going on in the world, how father and son's relationships are really damaging in the society, how we, in the name of modernism, how different we have become, how our religion has changed, how we used to celebrate festivals when we were small kids, how things have completely changed, how we have been much influenced by television, by YouTube, by internet, by markets in the European society and the American society. So that individualism, the seeking of individualism is something that modernism tries to define. But individual could be part of this presentation in modern writings. Another idea that I would like to talk about is this is a spirit. There is a spirit of experimentation. Call it art, music, literature, performance, painting, absurdity, symbolism, formalism. They all are part of experimentation. Why should I, as a writer, be portraying the character whose reality has not been that? Why should I be emphasizing something which is not the reality? So what can be the closest to the reality is presenting how it is. The modern man has no center. The modern man is centerless. The same person in the morning wakes up, goes to office, has one identity, eats something, talks to people, has to get angry if he's in some profession, and then when he does something in the afternoon, he has to completely change himself. In the evening, he goes back home and he has a different form. How can we capture these multiple identities of the same person? This is how it should be presented as it is. That's why this is a form of experimentation. You can call it in writing, style, presentation of characters, design of the plot, design of the setting, or you call a lot of other things. Even you could talk about paintings, you talk about performance art. How absurdity has been one of the major themes in some of the writings, like the very famous example, Waiting for Godot, itself is an example. So this form of postmodern time can only be captured by postmodern writings. My other examples would be like, this is the departure from modernism because it is postmodernism. It was in the year 1937 with Jean Francois Lyotard's publication, La Condition Postmoderne, the postmodern condition, a report on knowledge. That term, postmodern, made it way with the philosophical lexicon, then people started knowing about it. I just have to make it a little quicker now. I just would like to talk more about what how postmodernism highlighted some different views, some different angles and everything. So postmodernist writings talk about ambiguity, which is in a common practice in modern day-to-day life. And this modern literature or these postmodern writings must capture this ambiguity. There is no center of truth. Always the society is divided. It is always singularity versus plurality. It is one versus individuality versus society. And always this is the case, that majority defines what truth is. Can it be logical? Can it ever be logical? Truth need not be defined by majority. It could be right, there could be one person, or it could be a singular individual who could really foresee or to emphasize on truth about it. So it is a debate, and the debate has no end. So this ambiguous society about truth, when I'm telling you truth, it means the truth about any definitions, any scientific terminologies, any experimentation in the laboratory, or the verdict of court, or father-daughter relationship, anything we talk. The ambiguity that I'm telling you is the confusion that is being created. There is no one center which I consider the modern man is clueless, and this is part of postmodern writings. So rejection of ultimate faith and science could also be one of the aspects, but again, this might mean something which is opposite to the present generation, because what we have experienced in modern times is basically we believe in science. We have known it well, and our life has been much safer, comfortable because of science. At the same time, there are different challenges as well. But the rejection of certain faith on science has given an opportunity for other ideas to flourish. Anti-positivist, this positivist knowledge is derived from the experience of a natural phenomenon. It is not all the time that nature becomes one of the guardian of human beings, could be human beings themselves or the people who have not yet been found out, who are in Mars, could leave the Earth after thousands of years. So anti-positivist and anti-verificationist stance, what postmodernism talks about. And it also highlights the postmodern thinkers attack the idea of objectivity in social research and autonomous rational mind and grand narratives, or meta-narratives, you call it. So individuality is another aspect. Subjective views got more emphasis. Subjective perception of different people produces knowledge through which they constitute subjective realities. Remember, postmodernism emphasizes on subjectivity. The reason is this fragmented present modern world cannot be captured by the writings of classical styles. You cannot have a pattern which can present fragmentation. So, to present fragmentation, your writing should have a style of fragmentation itself. The style itself is metaphor. So truth is a matter of perspective in postmodernism. Truth is considered as a matter of perspective and not universal. Blurring old distinctions, postmodernism disregards binary oppositions, male, female, black versus white, and all. These postmodernist ideas are beyond male and female. Male and female is all biological essentialism. It has another definition. Male becomes a man where society introduces him. A female becomes a woman when society introduces her or society trains her. So biological essentialism and social constructionism, they do come together while defining the modern times. Biologically, we have been one, society makes us two, and our common experience in day-to-day society has another definition, number three. And these three different centers about ourselves cannot be captured by the usual practice of writing. And this postmodern style of writing, where you try to picturize the clueless, confused, ambiguous human beings, or the storyline without any pattern, without any sequence, you try to present it. Could be very close to the modernist writers like Virginia Woolf or other writers who even found a ground of stream of consciousness technique to use as a tool to represent the people of that time in the modern writings. They shaped their characters in such a way that they could read the minds of the characters. It was the experience of that particular time. So by saying this, I think I should now just quickly give you a clue that this is also about the idea about globalization and multiculturalism, that things have changed. We are global citizens, and we are affected by what happens in California, what happens in China, what happens in other parts of the world. So the huge globe, this whole globe has become one unit, and there is cross-culture, multicultural, and these cross-disciplines have made different identities to different times, and it has directly impacted our lives at the present time. Postmodern information, media, the huge access to information and media makes the postmodern life difficult and different. Postmodern society is getting molded by media. Consequently, our thoughts, media-defined reality, have become hyper-real, even more than real. There is a beautiful saying about media, the modern media. If you do not read the newspaper, you are not informed. You are uninformed. But if you read newspaper, you are misinformed. So what are you supposed to do? You have no clue. There is no center of truth. What time the fact changes, what time the idea changes, what time the whole social design changes, nobody knows. the real truth is the seeking of mankind at the present time. But people do not have time for all these things. So new literary trends, postmodern authors tend to use irony and black humor in their writings. They present subject matters, even a serious one, with a playfulness and fragmentation. So the whole world is amalgamation of all these ills and everything, the modern ills and modern. There is no systematic evaluation, systematic preservation of anything. So how can the world be presented in a systematic way? This fragmentation, presentation of presenting writing in a fragmented style of fragmentation or centerless style is what postmodernism is what present postmodern life is defined by postmodern writings. I have to say really sorry because I was supposed to talk about these people, Derrida, and then Foucault and Weizmann, and then there are Lyotard and Venetian also. But due to the lack of time, I think this is the references that I used for my talk. So I just want to quickly review what I said. I was talking about what culture is. I was talking about what theory is, and I was also talking about what cultural study is and how present society, present social culture has been part of postmodern writing, and how postmodern writing tries to bring out these cultural aspects of the present time and it tries to present. So thank you so much everyone for listening to me and being with me for this presentation. Thank you so much. We shall
Thank you.
go for the Q&A session for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for your motivational speech on culture and the significance of cultural theory and about postmodernism. Thank you very much, sir. Fellas, if you want to ask any questions, you can just post your questions in the message box.
Yes, please.
Shankari madam, you can read out the question.
Please do that. Yes.
Yes, Shankari madam, you are.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes, you are audible.
Yes, the vote of thanks should be given now.
Okay. Good afternoon to one and all. I deemed it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. Let me first of all start by giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's occasion a resounding success. First and foremost, I thank our special chief guest, Mr. Shishir Kumar Basal, Head Department of Major Arts from Saint Xavier College from Nepal, for his valuable special lecture on cultural theory. He has enlightened us on the various aspects of cultural theory, especially postmodern theory. Thank you very much, sir. We are grateful to our trustee, Tirumati Kavita Subramaniam, for her encouragement and guidance in conducting this international webinar. Next, we thank the principal, Dr. Parasuraman sir, and Professor S. Selvi, head of the Department of English, who stands behind us as a backbone for succeeding this program. Next, I thank our well-wisher, S. Navanithan sir, who supported us in many ways to make this program as a successful one. Next, I thank Mr. Bharatidasan, who supported us in a technical way. And then I thank our student friends and department colleagues for their patient participation and their great support. Thanks to one and all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay,
Take care.
thank you,
Thank
Cesar.
you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, the feedback link has been posted in the chat box. You can fill up the form for your certificates. Dear participants, the feedback link has been posted in the chat box. You can fill the form.
இப்பதானே இந்த இதுல போட்டது தானே சொல்றீங்க. இப்ப இந்த இது போயிட்டு இருந்தது தானே சொல்றீங்க. அவரு சும்மா
Selvi ma'am, can we stop the meeting, ma'am? Hello, ma'am. Can I audible? Hello, ma'am. Can I end the meeting, ma'am?